Today, the word bastard is usually just an insult. But centuries ago, being called a bastard could define your entire life. It meant you were born outside of marriage, denied your birthright, and treated as inferior before your life had even begun. In today's video, I'll tell you about the illegitimate children who overcame the circumstances of their birth, conquered kingdoms, founded dynasties, changed history, and became legends. So leave a like and let's dive in. Contrary to popular belief, being born out of wedlock was not always considered an unbearable disgrace. Before the 12th century, before the church stepped in and introduced a series of laws designed to strengthen the institution of marriage, people viewed illegitimacy much more simply. What mattered most was not whether a child's parents were officially married, but whether the father acknowledged the child as his own. One of the greatest examples is the King William the Conqueror himself. William was the illegitimate son of Robert the Magnificent, Duke of Normandy, and a woman named Herleva, the daughter of either a tanner or, according to some accounts, an undertaker. His illegitimate birth earned him the nickname William the Bastard. But because Robert openly recognised William as his son, the boy inherited the Duchy of Normandy when his father died, at just 7 years old. Not everyone welcomed the idea of being ruled by the son of a woman of such humble birth. Noble families that had previously paid little attention to the question of legitimacy suddenly found it deeply offensive, and William's childhood became a constant struggle for survival amid endless conflicts between powerful rival families. The hardships of William's childhood and the stigma of his illegitimate birth continued to follow him long after he began ruling in his own right at the age of 15. Above all, they shaped his character. He grew into a cautious, secretive man who trusted few people. They also left him with a deep dislike for sexual promiscuity. Throughout his entire life, William remained faithful to his wife, Matilda, something remarkably rare for a medieval king. Although the young duke ruled with an iron fist and tolerated no disobedience, people never stopped reminding him of his origins. During the siege of Alençon in the 1050s, the defenders gathered on the city walls and mocked William's birth, shouting, "Hide! Hide for the tanner!" a cruel reference to his mother's humble background. William's response was swift and merciless. After capturing the town, he ordered 32 of its leading citizens to have their hands and feet cut off. The massacre became known as the Harrying of Alençon. But whatever William lacked in legitimacy, he more than made up for in ambition. After the death of his cousin, the Anglo-Saxon King Edward the Confessor, in 1066, William invaded England, claiming that Edward had promised him the throne if he died without an heir. He defeated King Harold Godwinson at the Battle of Hastings and ushered in a new era that would forever change the course of English history. William ruled England successfully for 21 years and founded a dynasty that would reign for about a century. But his legacy reached far beyond that. Every English and later British monarch descended from him, including Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III. In one way or another, the blood of this once despised bastard still runs through many of Europe's royal families. Not bad for a boy who was never supposed to matter. But William wasn't the only king to reach the throne, despite being born out of wedlock. English history gave us an entire royal dynasty that could, in a way, be called the descendants of bastards, the Tudors. And if we take a closer look at the family tree of the very first Tudor king, Henry VII, we might start to wonder whether he had much of a claim to the English crown at all. Both his father's and his mother's bloodlines were, to say the least, rather controversial. Henry's father was Edmund Tudor, whose very existence was the result of a royal scandal. After the death of the warrior King Henry V, his widow, Caterina of Valois, was expected to devote herself to raising their only son, the young King Henry VI. Instead, she fell in love with, and secretly married, Owen Tudor, a Welsh nobleman with no royal blood whatsoever. After Catherine's death, Owen was imprisoned and put on trial for the marriage. But before that happened, while the young king was growing up completely unaware of his mother's second family, Catherine had given birth to several children by Owen. Only 2 sons survived into adulthood, Edmund Tudor and Jasper Tudor. Just imagine Henry VI's surprise when, after his mother's death, he suddenly discovered that he had 2 half-brothers. Fortunately for them, Henry VI was a kind and generous man. He granted both brothers noble titles and brought them into his court. Since the king remained childless for many years, Edmund and Jasper were even considered potential heirs for a time. It was probably one of the reasons Edmund was so eager to secure his own line. He married the very young Margaret Beaufort, whose ancestry was just as controversial as his own. Margaret descended from the Beaufort family, the children of John of Gaunt and his longtime mistress Caterina Sforza. Although John eventually married Catherine and their children were later legitimised, questions about their right to inherit the throne never completely disappeared. So, if you add everything together, it really does make you wonder. How strong was Henry Tudor's claim to the English crown? And yet, in 1485, he defeated Richard III, seized the throne, and founded the Tudor dynasty. Remarkably, the Tudor bastard story didn't end there. If Henry VII himself had little interest in filling the kingdom with royal bastards, nature seemed determined to make up for it in the next generation. His son, Henry VIII, is believed to have fathered several illegitimate children, although he officially acknowledged only one, Henry Fitzroy, the son of his mistress, Bessie Blount. Even the boy's surname told the story of his birth. Fitz meant son of, while Roy meant king. In other words, his name literally meant the king's son. Desperate for a male heir, Henry VIII showered the boy with honours, made him Duke of Richmond in Somerset, and for years considered him a possible successor. At one point, he even contemplated marrying Henry Fitzroy to his own daughter Mary. Yes, his half-sister, and no, that didn't seem to bother the king in the slightest. But Henry Fitzroy died unexpectedly at just 17 years old, disappearing from the political stage before he ever had the chance to fight for the throne. Had he lived, he might well have challenged his half-sisters after the death of Edward VI, especially considering that, at the time, they all shared exactly the same legal status. They were all considered illegitimate. You heard that correctly. Neither Mary I nor Elizabeth I was ever restored to legitimacy, because Henry VIII declared both of his marriages, to Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn, invalid. His daughters were legally regarded as having been born outside a lawful marriage. Of course, that was according to Henry's own ever-changing version of reality. Later in life, under the influence of his final wife, Catherine Parr, Henry restored both daughters to the line of succession, but he never restored their legitimacy. Doing so would have meant admitting that everything he had done to their mothers had been unjust, and Henry VIII was never a man eager to admit he was wrong. In the end, none of it stopped Mary from becoming the first woman to rule England in her own right, nor Elizabeth from becoming one of the greatest monarchs in English history. A rather fitting way of proving their father wrong about the value of daughters. Now I'd like to leave England for a moment and travel to Italy, to the very heart of the Catholic Church. Ironically, the institution that fought so hard for the sanctity of marriage had, by the 15th century, become surrounded by bastards. They could be found in almost every noble family, and even inside the papal palace itself. And of course, no discussion of famous bastards would be complete without the Borgias. Pope Alexander VI officially acknowledged 7 illegitimate children, although he may well have fathered even more. His 2 most famous children were Cesare Borgia and Lucrezia Borgia. Although brother and sister were long accused of having an incestuous relationship, most historians today believe those rumours were nothing more than propaganda spread by the many enemies of the Borgia family, and they certainly had no shortage of them. In many ways, both Cesare and Lucrezia were true children of their father. While Cesare strengthened the power of the papacy through military campaigns, political intrigue, and carefully planned assassinations, Lucrezia served her family in a very different way. She was married off 3 separate times to advance the interests of the Borgias. Her first marriage was annulled as soon as it was no longer politically useful. Her second husband was murdered, most likely on the orders of her own family. Only her third marriage finally brought her peace, allowing her to rebuild her reputation and become the respected Duchess of Ferrara. By the way, if you'd like to learn more about Lucrezia's fascinating life, and about how historically accurate the Borgia TV series really is, I have an entire video dedicated to that story here on my channel. And while it may be difficult to call the Borgias truly great in the traditional sense of the word, since their legacy is remembered as much for scandal as for achievement, their influence on European history is impossible to deny. One of the fiercest enemies of the Borgia family was Caterina Sforza. Caterina herself was also born a bastard, the illegitimate daughter of the Duke of Milan. Then again, in Italy at the time, that hardly surprised anyone. And if we go back one more generation, the story becomes even more remarkable. Her grandfather, Francesco Sforza, the man who founded the Sforza dynasty and placed his family on the throne of Milan, was also born out of wedlock. Yet, thanks to his extraordinary military talent and political skill, he rose high enough to marry the daughter of the previous Duke of Milan, and eventually inherited the duchy for his own family. So, perhaps Caterina inherited her determination and her talent for conquest from him. To briefly summarize my previous video, Caterina Sforza was probably the greatest rebel of the 15th century. She seized control of the Vatican for 12 days, forcing the cardinals to reckon with her during the election of a new pope. She proved herself to be an outstanding ruler of the important cities of Forlì and Imola. And she became a legend after the famous incident in which her enemies threatened to kill her children. Instead of surrendering, Caterina reportedly lifted her skirts and shouted that they should go ahead, because she had everything she needed to produce more heirs. Caterina's only true defeat came at the hands of Cesare Borgia. After a long and grueling siege, her city finally fell, and Caterina herself was paraded through the streets of Rome as a trophy of war. And yet, despite her defeat, history remembers her for something far greater. She was one of the very few people bold enough to challenge the Borgias themselves. That alone earned her the nickname the Tigress. But there was one more illegitimate child caught up in the struggle between the Borgias and the Sforzas, a man whose name is known all over the world, Leonardo da Vinci. It was Cesare Borgia who hired Leonardo to produce an incredibly detailed map of Caterina Sforza's city, making it easier to plan his military campaign. Remarkably, the map was so accurate that historians say it can still be used today. Leonardo himself had been born out of wedlock in 1452. He was the illegitimate son of the Florentine notary Ser Piero da Vinci and a peasant woman named Caterina. Interestingly, Leonardo came into the world just as both of his parents' families were arranging other marriages for them. As a result, the boy grew up in the household of his paternal grandfather. And it's fascinating to think that one of the greatest geniuses in human history received almost no proper education as a child. According to his contemporaries, Leonardo had a habit of enthusiastically beginning one subject after another, only to abandon them soon afterward. Because he was born illegitimate, he couldn't follow his father's profession as a notary. His family tried teaching him bookkeeping instead, but the young Leonardo seemed far more interested in confusing his teacher than learning arithmetic. Eventually, when Ser Piero moved to Florence, he took his son with him and showed a few of the 10-year-old boy's drawings to his friend, the artist Andrea del Verrocchio. That single decision changed Leonardo's life forever. Before long, he became Verrocchio's apprentice, marking the beginning of one of the most extraordinary artistic careers in history. Of course, we all know that painting was only one of Leonardo's countless passions. His genius extended far beyond art, to engineering, anatomy, architecture, science, and invention. In the end, this bastard became one of the most inventive and prolific minds of the Renaissance. Perhaps even one of the greatest minds humanity has ever known. The stories of today's heroes are yet another reminder that, in the end, it isn't your birth, your surname, or the circumstances you came into this world that define who you become. What truly shapes a person's destiny is what they choose to do with the life they've been given. Even someone born with the label of bastard could live a life so extraordinary that history would remember them as one of the greats. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which famous, illegitimate children from history do you think deserve to be on this list? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.